In the heart of a small, quiet village, 22-year-old Imani lived a life of quiet dignity, working as a seamstress in her family's shop. She was known for her kindness, her unwavering loyalty to her family, and for being the steady presence in a world full of chaos. Life had never been easy, but it had been good enough. Everything changed the day her father, Papa Jeed, brought a stranger into their home, a man who, from the moment he walked in, sent a ripple of unease through Imani's chest. Imani, Papa Jide said, his voice strained. This is Mr. Olamide. He is the one I spoke of. He has agreed to marry you. Imani's heart stopped. She stared at her father, then at the man standing before her. Mr. Olamide was tall, his face stern and sharp, older than she had expected. But it wasn't his age that terrified her. It was the coldness in his eyes, as if he saw nothing in her but a mere transaction. He offered her no smile, no warmth. You don't have to worry, her father said quickly. It's all arranged. This marriage will bring us the respect and security we need. Imani's mind spun. She hadn't been told about this. She didn't even know why it had been arranged. But Papa Jide cut her off. It's done. We must move forward, Imani. This is what is best for us. As the words settled in her mind, a feeling of cold dread washed over her. She had no say in this. She was being married off, not out of love, but as a bargain. As Mr. Olamide's piercing gaze locked onto hers, she realized that her future was no longer her own. The days following the announcement were a blur. Imani tried to speak with her father about her concerns, but he was resolute in his decision. She had always admired him, trusted him, but now he felt like a stranger. Why was he doing this to her? Her mind kept returning to Mr. Olamide. He had a quiet, imposing presence. Whenever he spoke, it was with the authority of someone who had no need to explain himself. He came from wealth, from power, but none of that mattered to Imani. She wasn't interested in any of it. She just wanted to be free to choose her own path. Imani's mother, Mama Eniola, had always been supportive, but now she said nothing. She merely watched in silence as the wedding preparations continued. The wedding day arrived with a cold wind that seemed to mirror Imani's feelings. The village was bustling with excitement as people gathered to witness the marriage of Imani and Mr. Olamide, a union that had been set in stone long before she had any say in the matter. At the altar, Imani could barely keep her composure. The weight of her father's gaze on her was suffocating. She didn't want this life. She didn't want a man she barely knew. But as she stood there, she realized she had no choice. The deal was already made. When Mr. Olamide took her hand, his touch was firm, cold. The vows were exchanged. She was now his wife, but in her heart she felt no joy, no hope, just a deep, endless emptiness. Days passed, and life in Mr. Olamide's large, impersonal home felt like a prison. He was polite, but distant. Their conversations were brief, and his interactions with her were formal, as if they were strangers. The love her parents had promised her was nowhere to be found. One evening, after a long day of silence between them, Imani found a letter hidden beneath a pile of paperwork on Mr. Olamide's desk. She hadn't meant to snoop, but something about the envelope caught her attention. Her hands shook as she opened the letter, the contents hitting her like a punch to the gut. The letter was from Mr. Olamide's first wife, a woman who had died in a tragic accident shortly after their marriage. But as Imani read further, her heart dropped. This woman had written about a deep betrayal. She spoke of a hidden agreement between Mr. Olamide and her father, a deal sealed with promises that had nothing to do with love. It wasn't just a marriage, it was a transaction, an alliance between powerful families. Imani's world began to unravel. The man she had married wasn't just an unknown figure. He was part of a web of deceit, and she had been nothing more than a pawn in his game. Imani confronted Mr. Olamide with the letter the following evening. The tension between them crackled like static in the air. "You knew this, didn't you?" she demanded, her voice shaking with anger and betrayal. He remained calm. staring at her without emotion. "It's for the good of our families, Imani." "You lied to me," she spat. "You used me. And my father let you." Mr. Olamide didn't flinch. He wasn't surprised. "You have your role to play, just as I have mine. This is bigger than you, Imani. This is bigger than both of us." The revelation hit her like a storm. She realized that she had been playing a part in something far darker than she had ever imagined. It wasn't just a marriage, it was a political move, an agreement that tied her to a future she never asked for. But even as the weight of the betrayal crushed her, a fire sparked in Imani's chest. She wasn't going to be anyone's pawn. She wasn't going to be a victim. She would fight back. But to do that, she would need to break free of everything that had held her captive, starting with the truth about her father and the true cost of the deal he'd made. Imani couldn't sleep. The shadows in Mr. Olamide's mansion seemed to stretch longer at night, like they were hiding secrets in their corners. She walked the halls in silence, the cold marble floors beneath her feet whispering her every step. She needed answers, real answers. And that's when she heard it. Voices, muffled, coming from behind the office door. She crept closer, pressing her ear gently against the polished wood. Mr. Olamide was speaking, but he wasn't alone. Another man, older, gravel-voiced, was replying with urgency. "She knows now," Olamide said. "She found the letter." The other man replied, "Then it's time. You need to secure the inheritance before she talks. Her father already signed everything over. She just doesn't know what's at stake." Imani's breath caught in her throat. Inheritance? She stumbled back from the door, heart pounding. She'd been used, yes, but now she realized something worse. This wasn't just about control or power. Her father had signed something, and whatever it was, her entire future, maybe even her life, was now tied to it. And worse, she was the last one to find out. Suddenly, the mansion felt less like a prison and more like a trap. She had to get out. The next morning, the weight of the night's discovery still pressed heavily on Imani's chest. The mansion, once a place of cold grandeur, now felt like a suffocating tomb. She couldn't trust her father. She couldn't trust Mr. Olamide. And with each passing moment, the walls seemed to close in even tighter. She decided to take matters into her own hands. Her eyes darted to the room she had avoided since her wedding, the study. She had to search through the papers herself. In the quiet of the afternoon, when everyone was occupied, Imani made her move. She crept into the study, her breath shallow with both excitement and fear. She knew the letter Mr. Olamide had been talking about was in that room. It had to be. The desk was cluttered with ledgers, legal documents, and contracts. Imani's fingers trembled as she flipped through them, scanning for any sign of what she needed to find. Her heart skipped a beat when she spotted it, a thick, old envelope sealed with red wax. Her name was scrawled across the front, the real name, not the one Mr. Olamide had been calling her. Without thinking, she tore it open, and inside was another letter, one that made her freeze in place. The letter was from her father. He spoke of a secret agreement he had made with Olamide's family, one that bound their bloodlines together for a hidden purpose, an inheritance of unimaginable wealth. It wasn't just a marriage. It was a deal for dominance, for power over the entire region. And she was the pawn. She felt the bile rise in her throat. This was it. This was the secret she wasn't supposed to know. This was what they had kept from her, the price of her freedom. Imani's hands shook as she held the letter, its contents making her blood run cold. The truth she had been chasing now seemed like a poison, twisting everything she knew. Her father had promised her to Mr. Olamide not out of love, but for wealth. She wasn't just a bride. She was a means to an end. A tool to secure a fortune her father had already traded her for. The world around her seemed to blur as the weight of the discovery pressed down on her. But there was no time for tears, no time for regret. If she stayed quiet, she'd become a part of this twisted deal. She had to act, she had to fight back. But how? Her father and Olamide were powerful men. What could she possibly do? Her mind raced, and then it hit her. There was a way. She wasn't alone. Imani had always kept a close relationship with her childhood friend Adebayo, a sharp-witted and resourceful man who had always stood by her. He had always been there when she needed him. But now, with everything on the line, she would need him more than ever. Imani didn't hesitate. She wrote a letter to Adebayo, asking him to meet her at the old meeting spot in the village square, a place where they had shared secrets as children. As she sealed the letter, a feeling of urgency gripped her. She wasn't sure if she could trust anyone else, but Adebayo had always been loyal. When they met that evening, the tension was palpable. The wind had kicked up, and the stars barely visible through the thick clouds, as if the heavens themselves were hiding their faces from her. "I need your help," she said, her voice low and urgent. "I've uncovered something terrible. My father made a deal with Mr. Olamide's family. They're after something far worse than money. It's power." Adebayo listened intently, his expression hardening as she spoke. "I always knew something was off," he muttered, "but I never imagined this. What do we do?" Imani's voice trembled but was resolute. "We need to take down the deal. I have proof now documents that will expose everything. If we can get them to the authorities, everything changes." Adebayo nodded, his jaw set. "You're not alone in this. I'll help you. We'll make sure the truth gets out, no matter the cost." And so they began their plan. The stakes were higher than ever. If they failed, the consequences would be deadly. But if they succeeded, everything would change. The night before the meeting with the authorities, Imani and Adebayo found themselves hiding in the shadows of the mansion, trying to gather the last pieces of evidence they needed. The storm was brewing again, just like that first night, as if the world was preparing for the final showdown. As they slipped through the mansion's back hallways, they encountered Mr. Olamide. He stood there, blocking their escape route, his gaze cold and unblinking. "You should have stayed in your place, Imani," he said, his voice icy with venom. "You could have had everything, but you chose this." Imani stood tall, her heart racing but her resolve solid. "You never had the right to make those decisions for me. You will never control me." He stepped closer, his hand outstretched, but before he could make another move, Adebayo stepped forward, holding the documents. "She's not alone, Olamide, and we're not afraid of you." For a moment, there was silence, then chaos erupted. A struggle, a fight for control. But in the end, the truth prevailed. The evidence was enough to expose the dark deal and tear apart the lives of those who had conspired to trap Imani. The authorities arrived just in time, and with the documents in hand, they arrested Mr. Olamide and her father. The scandal rocked the village, shattering the power structure that had kept so many lives in darkness. Imani stood by the window, watching the sunrise. The storm had passed. Her world was forever changed, but for the first time, she felt free. The future was uncertain, but she had her own path now. "I'm proud of you," Adebayo said, walking up beside her. "You did it. You brought the truth to light." Imani smiled, tears welling up in her eyes, but they were tears of relief. "I couldn't have done it without you, Adebayo. You were the strength I needed when I thought I had nothing left." As the new day broke, so did Imani's chains. The truth had set her free, and now her life was hers to live. The lesson of this story: take control of your own life. Imani's story shows that no one should have the power to decide your future for you. Even when betrayed by those you trust, you can still rise above it. The truth will set you free, and true strength comes from standing up for what's right, even when it's hard. Key takeaways: don't let others control your path. Betrayal can push you to find your strength. Stand up for yourself and the truth. This is a story about empowerment, resilience, and the power of making your own choices.